frame in frame. This is one of the more complicated compositions. It looks really easy, and a lot of people think it's easy until they actually start doing it. So frame in frame is an overlapping of shape. Here you have rectangles, but it doesn't have to be rectangles. It could be circles, squares, triangles. It could be any shape, so long as you're repeating that same shape. Now, the rectangles in this example are fairly even in size, but most of them have small, medium, and large shapes. So here you have a majority of rectangle shape. Notice they're not all the same. So Mondrian, when he created his painting, he put the shapes closer together and smaller shapes were put next to larger shapes to create a focal point. So notice how near the edges he's blurred the edges so that we're looking at the more complex part of the paint. So we're looking at the little shapes all crowded together, and then the shapes get gradually bigger, not better, bigger. So that's something to think about when you're creating your own composition. Mondrian, he's the epitome of rectangles, so he put small shapes next to large shapes. And with his work, what he was always trying to do is compare one color next to the next color and what kind of effect that created. So not only did he work with the size of the shapes, he worked with the colors and how one color put next to another color would create a certain effect, like red next to yellow or green will actually look bigger than it actually is. There's all kinds of studies done about this kind of theory, and you can look that up. It's a really fun exercise. Vogel here, what he did is he used similar shapes. Some of them are rectangles, so he used shapes that weren't equal sides, and he used those as a focal point. Essentially, they are still rectangle, but the shape is not evenly spaced on each side, like most rectangles or squares. And that's where he creates a focal point. This is where that shows the most. Carol Nelson, here she puts rectangular shapes, and near the focal point she adds a little bit of a curve so that it's different from the rest. So the shapes are all packed one next to another, some larger, some bigger. She's created a focal point not only by creating a circular shape or an oval shape, but by putting very small darks next to a larger light color. This is one of the tricks of creating a focal point. To find out more about this, see my bonus section on creating a focal point. Rauschenberg created this frame in frame using collage, and you can learn more about how to do collage in my collage video or in the little bonus section that I added there too. So you have rectangular shapes, and in those rectangular shapes, he also has different visual images. So he's overlapped them to create a focal point again. And with figures are the automatic focal point. And notice how all his elements really lead our eye towards that figure that is there. Grace CROWLEY, and she created this in the 1940s. When abstraction was just starting. So here she's overlapped shapes and similar shapes. They're not all perfectly the same, but they're very similar. And she's put very light pink next to some very dark darks, and that creates an automatic focal point. And then she's added little bits of lights all over so that your eye goes all over the painting but comes back and rests in one spot. That is one trick to creating a very good abstract. Here MIRO has rectangular shape with linear elements that create more rectangular shapes, and then the lines and the shapes lead us to one spot. So you have, it's almost like a video game full of color, and we're supposed to figure it out and let our eyes lead the way. The idea is, with MIRO, is that intuition should be more important than just trying to figure it out intellectually. So Just follow your intuition and then you get to the focal point and just enjoy the lines, the shapes. JOCK MACDONALD did a very bold move. He has rectangular shapes, angular lines, and then right smack dab in the middle, he put a circle, and that creates your automatic focal point. The other element is he put the color of it very light against a darker color and a bold color. So notice that around the edges, colors are more subdued. There are some bright ones, but at the same time, the colors that are near the edges are values that are a little bit darker or more subdued. That is another thing to think about when you're creating your own abstract. Here, Paul Klee has used rectangular shapes, and he's had us focus in on one spot by making it automatically brighter. And the shapes are smaller. So between the bright colors and the small shapes, our eye goes automatically there. Notice that all around the edges, you have more rectangular shapes, but they're subdued. We don't look at them very much because our eye is caught by those bright colors. That's something very important for you to notice when you start creating your own work. Jack Bush loves a bold brush. So what he's done is taken large marks that are really rectangular shapes, and then on top of that, or mixed in with that, smaller rectangular-like shapes where he used the edge of the brush. This is a totally different style, but it works completely as well. Now, for him to create an area that's more interesting than the rest, he put small darks against a light color. And then in another area, he put light areas against a red color. So those are all ways to create a focal point. But in this one, the focal point is really the large white with little bits of white that lead our eye towards it. And then right next to it, there's some dark colors so that we know that this color is bright and it's the real focal point. So that's it for frame in frame, and we'll see you in the next section.